These monsters are extremely ferocious. Although their eyes cannot see anything, their hearing power is incredibly sharp. If any living human makes even the slightest sound, these monsters come in packs, tear them apart completely, and devour them. This film also adopts the death is certain concept. The terror is no less than a quiet place. If you like films like this, then definitely watch it. On the walls of Sony Metro Station, fresh bloodstains are still visible, but strangely, all the people sitting in the coach. All the passengers sit silently when suddenly a newborn baby begins to cry. A hulking man prepares to pick it up and throw it outside, but the mother refuses to be separated from her child. She alone lifts the baby into her arms and walks out of the coach. As soon as the baby's cry echoes through the tunnel, the mother's face is suddenly splattered with blood. She immediately turns around and starts running. In the very next moment, a painful scream reverberates throughout the entire metro station. News of attacks by unknown creatures breaks on every TV channel. Some survivors even shared survival tips. The very first advice: never be born. It is said that a research team blasted open an ancient cave hundreds of years old and, by mistake, released these bizarre flying monsters. Ganja Jason now does not want to take any risks. He instructs his family to turn off their mobile phone ringer. But Jason soon feels that hiding at home is no longer safe. He decides to take his entire family to a forested area outside the city, believing there will be fewer monsters there. And indeed, the entire city had almost been wiped out. But Jason could not have imagined that thousands of others with the same idea had already set out. The road leading out of the city was completely jammed. Then Jason's brother Gma suggests they all travel via the mountain route. The path was difficult, but at least no one else was on it. Just as Jason was beginning to feel relieved, suddenly a herd of animals burst from the bushes, and Gma's vehicle flipped over and plunged into a ravine. Jason and his wife immediately ran down. Gma was alive, but his body was trapped in the car. He could not move. His wife tried to call for help, but who would listen to them now? Gma did not want to become a burden on his brother's family, so he took out a gun and began forcing them to leave, because those flying monsters could come at any moment. Jason agreed outwardly, but in his mind something else was going on. He was planning to go back and fetch a cutting tool. Their daughter Shurao AI, sitting in the back seat, sensed something was wrong. She quickly signaled everyone, "Don't make a sound." Just then a flying monster suddenly lunged in. The black dog sitting in the car began barking, which drew even more monsters there. Despair spread across everyone's faces. At that moment, the sound of gunfire came from down in the valley. In fact, Gma realized that the danger had reached him, so he sacrificed himself and drew all the monster's attention onto himself. Jason looked at his loyal but foolish dog. It was still barking. He helplessly opened the car door and let him out. Now his fate was in its hands. A short while later, everything outside grew quiet. Jason remained on high alert and, telling everyone to stay silent, stepped out himself to see the situation. But just then, the grandmother sitting in the car began coughing violently, and immediately a flying monster swooped in. Jason stood there silently. The monster hovered right in front of him but did not attack. Jason noticed something and quietly picked up a rock from the ground, throwing it far away. The monster lunged toward the sound, but when it found nothing to eat, it fluttered its wings and flew off. Jason breathed a sigh of relief. Now he was certain that these monsters are blind, but their hearing is incredibly sharp. Their hearing is incredibly acute, perhaps because they've lived in caves. Hearing this, hope flickered across everyone's faces, for their daughter Shurao AI had lost her hearing in an accident. This family had already learned sign language and grown accustomed to living quietly. Jason told everyone to stay vigilant, then went back down to check on his brother, only to find that the monsters had savagely devoured his body. His face was unrecognizable. Without a word, he set the car ablaze, perhaps as his brother's final farewell. The flames and the explosion's roar drew the creatures from all across the jungle, and with a thunderous blast, all the monsters were burned to ashes, But due to the loud sound of the car engine, Jason and his family were now forced to walk on foot. By nightfall, they finally crossed the jungle and reached a farmhouse. Jason slowly opened the gate, but he didn't see the bell hanging above. The sound not only woke the monsters but also brought out the farm owner with a shotgun. He knew nothing about the monsters. He angrily started shouting at Jason to leave the place. But in the very next moment, the monsters surrounded him. And within seconds he fell to the ground, completely silent. Jason and his family stood quietly with their eyes closed for a long time. Later, when the monsters flew away, they saw a drainage pipe nearby. Jason was the first to crawl into it, and the other end of the pipe opened directly inside the farm. Then he called everyone else. His wife told their younger son to go first, and she herself stayed at the back. But after walking just a few steps, the younger son accidentally startled a rattling rattlesnake. Hearing the sound, a monster came rushing and in one swift move tore the snake apart. But the wife, who was walking at the back, also fell victim to the monster's attack. Now the whole family was at the brink of death. Jason immediately turned on a nearby bone-crushing machine. Its loud noise attracted all the monsters there one by one. One by one, the monsters entered the machine and kept turning into heaps of flesh. In the end, Jason's family was saved. Only a bite wound remained on his wife's leg. Xiao Ai immediately ran and brought alcohol, and started cleaning the wound. But sadly, even after the whole night passed, there was no improvement in the wound. Now signs of infection started appearing in his wife. They had to find antibiotics at any cost. Out of desperation, Jason took his daughter along and decided to leave the farmhouse. As soon as they reached the road, they saw terrifying flying monsters sitting in clusters on the electric poles. Jason and his daughter moved forward very carefully. Soon they reached a nearby small town. The whole city was silent. Only bloodstains were visible. No human was in sight. Perhaps this area had already been destroyed. After wandering through several alleys, they finally found a pharmacy. But they couldn't see that a man was silently watching them from a short distance. Inside the shop, there was a strong smell of rot. Several half-burnt corpses were scattered on the floor. Jason didn't stay long. He quickly picked up the antibiotics and was about to leave when Xiao Ai noticed a corpse on the floor that seemed to be slightly moving. Out of curiosity, when she lifted the sheet, she saw that it wasn't an ordinary corpse, but a breeding nest of the monsters. And one of them was just about to hatch from the egg. Xiao Ai screamed loudly in fear. And at that moment, a huge number of monsters emerged from the darkness. Now both father and daughter stood completely still. They didn't even breathe. But that wasn't a solution. Xiao Ai immediately thought of a trick. She picked up a mop lying on the floor. And then Jason set it on fire. The thick smoke immediately triggered the store's fire alarm. Hearing the loud sounds, all the monsters panicked and started running around like crazy. In that chaos, Jason and his daughter ran out of the pharmacy. But as soon as they returned to the alley, the strange man who had been watching them earlier now stood in front of them. He looked like a priest. He took out a diary that said, "Welcome to the religious cult." Jason couldn't understand anything. He didn't want any connection with this strange man. Just then the priest opened his mouth and showed his half-cut tongue. Jason's heart trembled with fear. He immediately, taking his daughter along, Jason ran back toward the farm. As soon as they reached home, they gave the medicine to his wife, which slowly began to heal her wound. At the same time, Xiao Ai also received great news on the radio. The flying monsters hated the cold. And that's why people in the Arctic Circle were completely safe. Jason now clearly understood. If they wanted to survive, they had to go north. But before that, the priest returned, this time with some of his followers. He brought the same old invitation again, to include Jason and his family in the religious cult. This time, Jason refused clearly, without any hesitation. But the priest now put forward another condition. He said, At least send Xiao AI with us. Because she is the chosen child. Jason's blood boiled with rage. He ran inside the house and brought out his hunting gun. The priest laughed. What will you do by firing a bullet? The sound will bring all the monsters here. And then you too will die. But Jason was not afraid at all. It was clearly visible in his eyes. Either everyone would die or no one would. The priest understood the situation. And without saying a word, he returned with his people. Night had fallen and there was silence all around. Jason's sleep was suddenly broken by a loud thunderclap. He began to feel uneasy, as if something terrible was about to happen. He immediately woke his family and opened the door to look outside. There stood a little girl all alone. After thinking for a few moments, they called her inside. As soon as they saw her face in the dim light, everyone's soul trembled. Her tongue was half cut, which meant she was also a member of the cult. Then when they removed her coat, they saw mobile phones taped all over her body. At the same time, Xiao AI also woke up. She felt some disturbance. So she pulled aside the curtain and saw a mobile phone stuck to the glass. And then the next alarm went off. Hearing the loud noise, hundreds of monsters began running toward that direction, out of control. Without wasting any time, Jason ripped off all the phones from the girl's body and threw them into the water. As soon as the phones sank, the alarm stopped. But before anyone could breathe a sigh of relief, another mobile phone crashed through the window and fell inside. Now Jason understood that this was all a trick by the religious cult. He immediately told everyone to run to the basement. But amidst the chaos and panic, some cult followers kidnapped Xiao AI. Her mother tried to stop them with a hammer, but she was kicked hard and fell to the ground. As Xiao AI was being dragged forcefully out of the house, her grandmother pulled her back with all her strength. Because of this brave move, Xiao AI escaped the group. But when the grandmother saw that they were still chasing her, she screamed loudly. And suddenly a huge swarm of flying monsters came storming in. Within seconds, the grandmother and the 3 cult members became the monsters' prey. Xiao AI was still in shock when the hidden priest appeared once again and captured her. Jason was trembling with rage. But understanding the sensitivity of the moment, he didn't act in haste. Just then a lightning bolt flashed, and the sound of heavy rain confused the monsters. Jason's wife immediately ran and freed their daughter. And Jason attacked from behind, knocking the priest to the ground. The whole family united. And in an intense fight, they defeated the cult members. Finally, Jason gathered the courage and crushed the priest's head with the butt of his gun. Then he saw a mother and her son. But instead of killing them, he let them go and returned home. After the rain, Jason's family once again set out on their journey north. Crossing mountains and rivers, they finally reached a shelter near the Arctic. But little did they know that now the monsters were slowly adapting to the cold. Now, the battle was about who would adapt first to this changed world, humans or monsters. This film didn't have the same level of horror, drama, or depth as A Quiet Place. But the good thing was that the main characters didn't act foolishly and made smart decisions at every turn. That's why this film can be considered better than 90% of similar movies. If you disagree, be sure to let us know in the comments. See you in the next story.